Hello everybody, my name is David Conyers. I want to welcome you to a presentation with Stewardship on Steroids. Today we are going to be talking about cash flow management and mortgage acceleration, and really we tie the two together with Stewardship on Steroids. Before we get into the working parts of that, I just want to take a moment to go ahead and introduce you to the website itself, and that's what you're seeing on the screen now. It's a pretty simple website with buttons that go across the middle part of the screen here. Right now we're at the home part, and that's just a welcome. If you click on About, you're just going to read some information there about Stewardship on Steroids in regard to the book and the website and the vision that I have for you. There's also videos which are designed to help you in your learning process along your stewardship journey. Create a profile, which is really the same as start your profile up here. Those are the same links. And that's where you're going to want to go later after this presentation to see how things look for yourself. There are testimonials, there's a contact us button, there's author, which is a little more information on me personally and how I came to be where I'm at today. There's Stewardship on Steroids in the media, and then there's buy the book. If you don't have the book and you want to get your hands on a copy of it, just click on that. It's going to take you to a link to the publisher where you can purchase a book over here of your choosing. It's a little bit cheaper here than it is at Amazon or barnesandnoble.com. So with that, let's get into the actual presentation. I'm going to be using an actual client of mine by the name of Steve. I'll leave his last name out of it, and I've got his numbers plugged in for you to see. And the first thing I really want to show you is how easy it was for Steve to go in here to stewardshiponsteroids.com and actually create a profile. Now, when he first came to me, he was a good steward, but upon seeing his profile, I knew that I could make him a great steward. And when you see his profile, you're also going to say, wow, he really is a good steward, perhaps better than you, maybe not quite as good as you, but I'm sure you'll agree that he is a good steward. I warned him up front before I showed him his profile. I said, Steve, I need you to really open up your mind for me. I need you to understand that I'm going to teach you some things that are very new and they're very foreign to you, and it's not your fault because I understand that you just believe the same lies that the rest of us have believed our entire lives in regard to the financial mistruths that have been shoved down our throats our entire lives. He was willing to, exercise a little bit of intellectual courage and simply check the math for himself and leave the stinking thinking outside and move forward. And as you watch this today, I'm going to give you the same opportunity to do that, and just make sure you trust the math. And now the math that we're going to be using is not difficult. It's actually pretty simple math. It's just arithmetic. So as we do that, again, give yourself permission to exercise a little bit of intellectual courage and simply check the math as we go along. So let's start with showing you how Steve created his profile. I will just log in and we'll go to show you each page. The first page is just who are you and contact information and things like that. I'm going to match those passwords up so that as I click on continue, it will go ahead and load to the next page. The next page is all about the home and the mortgage, or mortgages if there's more than one. You can see here that Steve has filled in his homeowner's insurance based on a monthly amount. So he's telling me he pays $600 per year. And when we divide it by 12, it's $50 a month. So we need a monthly figure here. His property taxes run him about $1,200 a year, so that's $100 per month. So he's put in $100. Primary home information, the appraised value of his home is about $240,000. He's filled that in. The origination date, in other words, what's the day that he got his loan, his mortgage? That was April 15th, 2007. The original balance is next. He put that in there. The interest rate, he put that in. The term, he put in 360 because he did it by the month. Now, if you wanted to do it by the year and put in 30 years, you could do that. But he understood the monthly part of it, and he just put in 360, so we won't change that. His balance owed, that's not an exact number, And he knows that's not an exact number, but he knows that's pretty close. And that's what you want to do too, is you want to be pretty close. If you can be exact, that'd be great. The monthly payment. Now, pay particular attention to this part of it because a lot of us have monthly payments on our mortgages, and they include the property tax and the homeowner's insurance, or in other words, it's escrowed. But for this program here to work for you, what we need is we need the monthly payment on the mortgage itself, not including the homeowner's insurance or the taxes on it, because you can see those are broken out separately up here. So try and be accurate as you can on your monthly payment. Steve does not have a second mortgage, so there's nothing filled in here. So he's ready to move on. He just clicks on continue. Now it's going to ask him, what about loans, Steve? Do you have any loans? Well, as a matter of fact, he does. He has one loan. He doesn't have any credit cards, which is good, but he does have one loan, and that's on a car. And you can see the way he did that, when he would click on this add new button, he would go in here and he would fill it in, and then it would add it. Now, I'm not going to do anything extra because I don't want to really add anything. I don't know if it's going to let me back arrow or not. There we go. So that's what he did. He's got his car loan in there. It's a 2008 Pontiac with a balance of $7,700. He's got a payment on that of $480. Now, that's a big deal right there. We're going to come back to this later, but this payment is something that I would love to see go away for him. That's one of the things I'm going to work on with him, and you'll see what I'm talking about in a little bit. Expenses, we all have those, Lord knows. We break it down for you. The first part of it is your vehicle expenses. He's telling me that on a monthly basis, they need about $300 a month for gasoline. They need about $100 per month for insurance, $20 per month on registration. In other words, $240 a year. Service about $20 a month. He does not lease, so that's zeroed. But if you do have a lease vehicle, that's where you would put that figure, that monthly lease figure. And then household expenses. We all have those too. He doesn't have a water or sewer bill because he lives in the country and he's on a well, but if you live in town, that's where you would put your water and sewer. His electric bill, natural gas, and again, all this is broken down monthly. Probably the most important part of this particular page is the miscellaneous within the miscellaneous. This is the miscellaneous section. Here's the miscellaneous expenditures within the miscellaneous section. What that is it seems like most of us have a certain amount of money that just dissipates into the atmosphere each month, and we have no clue where it went. Even though we might be budgeters, we still have some money that absolutely just goes away and we don't know where it goes. If you do budget, and if you have a decent idea about how much money's left over at the end of each month, then you'll have an idea about what to put here. Steve says, I figure there's about $350 that I really cannot account for, so he put that right there. So that's an important line within it. Everything else is pretty much self-explanatory, and it's all based on monthly figures. So he clicks on continue. Well, he got money coming out, but he's also got money coming in, and that's the income. And it's important to understand this is his net income. In other words, this is what they bring home together. It's not the gross amount. We can't work with gross income because Uncle Sam's already got some of that. We just want to know how much do you have coming into the household. Now, I've been talking monthly, but down here you can see that these say annual tax refund. If you're used to getting an annual tax refund of $2,000 per year, then I want you to put $2,000 right there. If you get an annual dividend or bonus or additional of any kind, then I want you to put it right here. In Steve's case, he's used to getting a bonus of at least $2,500. Notice I said at least $2,500, so he put the smaller amount. He's hedging on the lower side of things, and that's just fine. I would rather you do that also. Liquid assets, all self-explanatory. That gives me a snapshot of where you're at in your stewardship journey. If there is any other real estate, such as a Florida home or rentals or a timeshare, then you can just put that right here by simply clicking Add New and filling it out. And when you're done, you just click on Finish. And that's it. Steve is finished with his profile. Now what's happened here is it's already calculated the scenario for him, and it said, Steve, even though you're on a 30-year mortgage, when you implement these strategies, you're going to be paid off in 5 years and 7 months. That's right. He's on a 30-year mortgage, but when he implements the strategy, he's going to be paid off of his mortgage in 5 years and 7 months. Now you should be saying, Dave, how could that be? And that's exactly what we're going to start explaining right now, how that could be. I'm going to take you over to the administrative side of the website now. This is what I see when I open it up and look at a profile. Everything that we just looked at is what we're looking at now, only it's a different view. And it's a view really designed for me to help you. In this case, to help Steve. I'm looking at some things right off the bat that are interesting to me. First of all, I'm making sure that his credit score is decent or good, and it is. Secondly, I'm looking at his collateral loan to value, or in other words, does he have equity in his home? And he obviously does. The home is worth about $240,000. He only owes about $183,000 on it, which means his collateral loan to value is at 76%, which means he has about 24% equity in his home, which is better than a lot of us these days. With the housing market, being the way it is, but he's doing pretty good. The other thing I look at is I go right down to the bottom because it's already calculated this for me. Not there, didn't mean to highlight that. But down here where it says profit loss, what this tells me is after Steve gets paid each month and then they pay their bills each month, that they have about $1,800 left over. So they're doing good. They're doing very good. In other words, they're not spending more than what they earn. Now, if I look at this number and there's a negative sign in front of it, that means you're in trouble. And that means we got different issues to talk about. Steve is a good steward. They're saving about $1,800 a month. One more thing that I notice is this line right here. That tells me he's a good steward. He's a good giver. So giving's important to him. If giving is important to you, then that tells me something about who you are. That tells me that you care about your stewardship skills. All right. Moving on. So what I do is I go through the same pages that Steve went through, and I look at those pages and I look for anything that seems off kilter. Now, I've already done that, but I'm just showing you how we can continue to go through the pages to where it brings us to a point to where we're going to start talking about the ins and outs of how this actually works. No records on other real estate, and it takes us to the first lien strategy right here. The part where it tells us we can be debt-free in 5 years and 7 months. Steve can be debt-free. Now, I know this may look a little bit scary right now. I'm going to explain it to you in detail. It'll make perfect sense to you in a matter of moments. What you're looking at here is you're looking at Steve's new cash flow system through Steve's new mortgage. Now, before Steve got involved with me, he was just like probably 99 point some odd percent of the rest of us out there in the world, from the standpoint that when he got paid on Friday, he deposited his check into a checking account, and then when it was time to pay bills, he paid his bills. When he had extra money, he would deposit that into his savings account. His mortgage looked a little bit something like this. He has a 30-year mortgage, and it takes a long, long time to pay it off. Now you can see when we look at a 30-year mortgage, especially the early part of it, that his payment of $1,232 is what he pays every month, but only $176 of that going to principal and more than $1,000 going just to interest alone. As we scroll down, we know that that was taken out in 2007, so about 5 years into it, I suppose he is now. And there's still, at the 5-year mark, there's still almost $1,000 going to interest, and a much smaller amount, $242. go into principal. His original balance on that was 193,000, and he's only at about 183 now. So all those payments made very little impact whatsoever. Let's go to the very bottom, because what I want to show you here, if he continues to do this, he's going to pay off the house eventually. That's the $195,000 loan he took on it, but look at the interest that he paid on that, $248,000 in interest, and that is what the establishment is telling us is the best thing for us to do. Your mortgage brokers, your bankers, they're telling you the best way to go is with a 15-year, 20-year, or a 30-year fixed mortgage, and this is exactly what you're seeing on the screen right now, and it's just absolutely craziness, and I'm going to prove it using simple math. Let's go back to that first lien page that had all those crazy numbers across it, and I'm going to tell you what this represents. These numbers are coming right off of what Steve punched in. What you're looking at here, folks, is a new type of mortgage for Steve to put into the first lien position. In other words, I'm going to say, Steve, why don't you refinance your home using a home equity line of credit? You say, oh, I've heard of those. Yeah, you might even have one. You've probably heard of them, and you've probably never realized how much of an effective tool that it could be, but the numbers are about to prove it to you. So what Steve has done is he said, I'm going to use this home equity line of credit as my new mortgage. Now, how does one of those work? A home equity line of credit is really no different than just a line of credit whether it's tied to your home as collateral or whether it's a credit card. Other than the interest and how that works, there's definite advantages with a home equity line of credit, or HELOC, as I'll call it from this point forward. Steve is going to use this HELOC as his new mortgage. He's also going to use it as his new checking account, and he's also going to use it as his new savings account. Why would he do such a thing? Well, when you deposit your money into a checking account on a weekly basis or bi-weekly or monthly basis, however it is that you get paid, you're depositing your money into an account that is earning you nothing. Okay, maybe it's earning you 0.1 or 0.2%, whatever it is. Maybe you got one of those great checking accounts out there that's earning you 0.5%. Basically nothing, like I said. When you do that, is that a really good idea? No, it's not. Do we know that? Yeah, we all pretty much know that, and we understand the principle behind the fact that when we do that, we're actually letting the bank use our money for free. In other words, we all know that the bank is making money off of our money. We're not ignorant. We understand that, but somehow that's become acceptable to us, when in fact it really should not be acceptable to us, because we're being poor stewards when we do that. With Steve, he understood the principle, and he said, you know what? I see what you're saying, because now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my monthly income and I'm going to deposit it into this home equity line of credit, or HELOC, and when it comes time to pay my bills, I'll just simply pay my bills out of it. And that's what he did. That's his new checkbook right there. He deposits and he spends. He deposits and he spends. Rather than doing it through his checking account, he's going to do it in his HELOC. Now, why would he do that? Here's the reason. The $7,400 in income that goes into the HELOC, the bank's actually going to see that as a payment. That's what it looks like to them. Therefore, effectively holding down an average daily balance at the rate of 4.5%. Therefore, his money is effectively working for him at 4.5% on a balance of $183,000. So that's like putting $183,000 in a savings account and getting 4.5% for it. And that's effectively what it's like doing. So in other words, what he's done here is he's turned the tables on the bank. He has said, you know what, I've just become my own bank and my house is my bank. I'm going to use my house as my bank. I'm going to deposit and I'm going to spend out of this liquid HELOC tied to my home in the first lien position. This is my new mortgage. This is my new checking account. Let's do some math, folks, and see how simple this actually is. If you will take $183,000 and you add $4,365 to it, $4,365, and then you subtract the 7,400, and then you add the interest. The next number you're going to get is right here, 180,651. And then if you do the arithmetic, again, earlier I told you we were going to show you the math and it would be very easy. It would just be addition and subtraction. That's what this is. If we do it on the next line and take the 180,651 and then we add the expense and we subtract the deposit and then we add the interest, our next number is going to be this. Okay, and line by line by line, we're going to go on, and that's how the math works. When we get over in here and we see numbers over here, then we have to add that because it's an expense, but this is a deposit, so we would subtract that, and then we would see this number right here. Okay, so we go all the way across. It's just on the first part of it. I'm just having to go this far because that's all that's relevant. Long story short, at the end of 1 year, Steve has brought his balance down from 183,000 to 155,955, or roughly $156,000. That is amazing. Let's look at a comparison and see how long it would take him to go from 183 to 156,000 on his old loan. I can pull that up just by looking at comparison. Drag this down. This is where he says he is in his loan, and that's where he should be based on the numbers, and so that means the calculations are correct that he entered in. Let's go down. Remember earlier on the last page we said that he would be at 156,000 in 12 months. Well, here's the 12-month mark from where he's at now. 183 to 180. But how much farther do we have to go to get to the 156? We're still going. Well, he would actually pay off using the first lien strategy before he ever got to the 1 year mark on his old strategy. 150. So right about there, which is one. Wow. He would have to go, that's 5 years and 7 months. 6 and 7. So he'd have to go about 7 years to duplicate the same results that he achieved in just 1 year using the HELOC in the first lien position as his first mortgage. Okay, it's not a second, it's his first mortgage, and it's his new way of cash flowing his money. It's his new checkbook, if you will. All right, folks, I'm going to talk a lot about cash flow as we go through here, because our minds are so conditioned to think that interest rates are so important. But again, the math doesn't lie, and we're going to look at that. So you say, Dave, the rate is 4.5%. Isn't that a variable rate? And I'm going to say, yes, it is a variable rate. In fact, well, right away you may just turn off and say, oh, no, you can't do variable rates because variable rates are too dangerous. My banker has told me my entire life that variable rates are dangerous and I can't do that. I say, again, give yourself permission to check the math. Keep your mind open as we go through this, because I'm going to show you with simple math how wrong you are in that thinking. Now, the rates are based off of prime. Prime is something that's controlled by the federal government. They will raise prime rates if the economy is growing too fast. They will lower the prime rate if the economy is growing too slow. Basically, right now the rates are as low as they're probably ever going to be because we are in a recession and it's not going anywhere too quick, rather. But when they do raise rates, typically it's a little bit at a time, and I'm talking by the tenths. But let's look at a rate increase that goes a quarter point every 3 months and see what it does to his payoff schedule, which is currently at 5 years and 7 months. I'm going to hit save, and that's going to actually recalculate it for us. And you can see here the rate went from 4.5 3 months later to 4.75 to 5, so on and so forth. Let me hit that again, make sure it calculates. There we go. Well, what it did was it took us from 5 years and 7 months to 5 years and 11 months. And I'm going to scroll down just to show you the payoff part. There it is. That's where the balance is 0. And again, if we do the math, look at the rate at this time. It's gone up so high, it's at 10.25, but it only had a 2-month effect on his payoff. Why is that? Well, it's because of the way the interest is calculated. Now, we need to talk about that, so let's do that real quick. You need to understand the difference between simple interest and compounding interest. But let's look at it from the standpoint as if you were investing money as opposed to borrowing money, because I really think it's easier to understand that way. Let's say, for example, you had a simple interest investment that you wanted to get involved with, and it was going to be a 30-year investment. I'm going to use 30 because Steve has a 30-year mortgage. Okay. So, for instance, let's say you invest $1,000 at 7% for 30 years. What's the effect of that? Well, if you get 7% simple each year, that means you just take 1,000 times 0.07, which is $70. That means you get $70 in interest each year that you leave your $1,000 invested. So take that 70 years, or $70 rather, times the 30 years, and you'll come up with $2,100 in interest. Add that $2,100 to the $1,000 that you originally invested, and 30 years from now, you'll have $3,100. That is a simple interest investing schedule. How does that differ from compounding? Well, quite a bit, actually. Let's go to a savings calculator, and let's take that same $1,000. We're not going to put anything else with it. We want to invest it at 7% for the same 30 years. Now, compounding interest simply means that you're going to invest, and we compounded that on a monthly basis, which most are, just like mortgages are. And that means at the end of 1 year, because of monthly compounding, the interest is not 70, but it's actually 72.29. So the 1,000 went from 1,000 to 1,072. The next year, you get to earn interest on this number rather than just the 1,000. The year after that, you get to earn that 7% on this number rather than just the 1,000. And on and on. The third year, you're going to earn money or interest on that number rather than the thousands. So let's speed it up and see the effect after 30 years. So after 30 years, you have $8,100 as opposed to $3,100. So it's more than twice the amount. When we look at it from a borrowing standpoint, it has the same effect as it does from an investing standpoint. So if you can understand that, interest on top of interest is a good thing when you're investing, but interest on top of interest when you're borrowing is not a good thing. So what we see here is with this HELOC, this is a simple interest loan, which is what we want. And we're not too concerned about the interest rate. We're not too concerned about it because now we understand that our minds were conditioned to buy into compounding interest strategies that are only making people rich, rich, rich and hurting us. So I don't care what the rate is on this as long as it's reasonable. And they usually always are reasonable because of the fact that they are tied to prime. But you say, Dave, what if it's not reasonable? What if it's 7%? Well, actually that is still reasonable, but we could calculate it just to see. So let's do that. And you can see that even starting at 7, going 7 all the way down, it changed it and took it out to 6 years and 1 month. And remember, we were at 5 years and 7 months. But Steve was actually at 30 years on his old loan. But Dave, what if it goes crazy? What if it goes to 12%, which typically is often a ceiling that you'll see on these HELOCs, by the way. They usually have ceilings anywhere from 12 to 15, 18% is the highest I've seen. But even at 12%, which is really kind of pie in the sky stuff, folks, we haven't seen that since the Carter administration. We may see it again, don't get me wrong, but even at that, his payoff is 7 years and 6 months because 12% simple is better than almost anything compounded when you're borrowing, and the math proves it. Again, if you take this number right now on this calculator and you You add this one to it and you subtract that one from it and you add that one to it, you're gonna come up with this one. Bottom line. Let's change this back to the reasonable rate. This is actually kind of a high rate. Most of my clients are in the 3.25 right now, but I would rather show you something a little higher than that for demonstration purposes. Okay, a couple things here that happened right off the bat. Remember on his conventional amortization schedule, what we looked at, and let's just go to, that again. We looked at, even at the 5-year mark, basically where he's at now, he's at 183,000 on his payoff. So right in here, he's got about 992 going out in interest and 239 going out in principal. Wrong one. Here we go. But under the HELOC strategy, it's not that way. What's happened is the actual interest going out is smaller. And because of the payment and because we got rid of the first mortgage, we immediately increased his monthly cash flow by $696, almost $700. And I want you to pay attention to something here. I want you to see something what I call momentum, financial momentum for you, working for you instead of against you. When you're in a conventional mortgage and when you're using checking accounts and savings accounts, your money is not working for you, it's working against you. It's creating momentum, front-ended momentum for the bank and against you. But here we've turned the table. Look at the interest due of $686. The next month it's $677, and then it goes to $668. Look at the monthly cash flow positive, $696, the next month to $705 to $713, and it just keeps going, folks. In only 1 year's time, his monthly cash flow has increased a little more than $100 just because he changed the way he was cash flowing his money. He said, I'm no longer going to give the bank my money for nothing. I'm going to put it to work for me so that my money can effectively earn me 4.5% as opposed to earning me nothing and allowing the bank to use my money for nothing. Okay, so that's the math behind it. But you say, David, if this column represents my deposits and this represents my expenditures, where's the column that represents my savings account? Great question. Let's talk about that. Over here, when you see available funds, that's going to represent your savings account because, again, this is a HELOC. It's an open-ended line of credit which you can write checks out of and make deposits into, and just like you do your checking account. And I hope you have a savings account. Most of us do, but why do we really need one? Well, we need one for emergencies or, life's little surprises or whatnot. So that's what that's there for. And I'm going to get into that in a little more detail, but what I want to say about it right now is this. The home is worth $240,000. He only owes $183,000 on it, but his loan amount was $192. In other words, his credit limit is $192. His balance is only $183, which means that he has available funds of $9,000 over here. And those are nice to have because you never know what's going to happen in life as far as life's little emergencies. And we're going to cover those in a minute. But first I want to go back to the cash flow part of things and show you something that's really going to blow your mind. I've talked about the interest rates. We took it up to 12%. You've seen that he could still pay off in far, far less than 30 years using this strategy as opposed to a conventional mortgage. And I'm trying to really get you to understand that it's really a cash flow issue and it's not an interest rate issue. The next point is going to prove that beyond a shadow of a doubt for you. Remember I said that we would talk about that car loan? Well, we're going to do that right now. I looked at this and I seen that Steve had a loan of $7,700 and it was costing him $480 per month. That means $480 per month coming out of his budget, which was killing him. Well, was it killing him? Not really, because he's a good steward. But in my mind, it was killing him because he could be a great steward if he just fixed a few things, and this is one of the things he needed to fix. I don't like this payment, and I'll show you why. If I go in here and I edit this and I just include it, now what that means is I am telling the system that I'm going to pay off this balance using that $9,000 available credit that he had that I just showed you. Let's go back and look at what happened by doing that. You can see the loan is not 183, it's 190,700 because the car is in there now. I actually added the car and it dropped his available funds to 1,300. But did you already notice this? Remember earlier it was 5 years and 7 months to pay off? So what I've done is I've actually made the loan larger, but it increased his monthly cash flow. That's right. And because his cash flow increased, he was actually able to pay off even quicker. So let's boil this down and make sure you absorb it. We actually made the loan larger. We got rid of the car payment. It's gone, which increased his monthly cash flow to $1,147 from it was about $700 before, just under $700. But that was strong enough to overpower any interest rate and cut him 7 months shorter on his payoff. Now, folks, if that doesn't do it for you right there in regards to me telling you it's a cash flow issue versus a rate issue, then nothing is going to do it. But the numbers are the numbers, and again, we can take the numbers right here and we can take that and we can add that and we can subtract that, and then we can add the monthly interest due, and our next number is going to be this. The math does not lie. It is what it is. So again, cash flow issue, not an interest rate issue. You do not want to strap yourself into a loan that is calculated in a compounding manner. You need to be in a mortgage that gives you liquidity and it gives you a simple interest basis from which you're working off of, and you're going to be much more effective and much quicker in paying off your home. Steve's doing it in 5 years, and he's not doing anything different than he did before. He's depositing, he's spending, he's living, he's giving. Everything is exactly the same as he did before, but he went from 30 years to 5 years. Simple as that. Does he have more money to give to charities? Does he have more money to give to his church? He absolutely does. And why does he? Because he increased his monthly cash flow. So if he wants to give more, he can give more, and that's a wonderful thing. Earlier I said we're going to talk about life's little surprises, and that's what we really need to do. So let's just go on down and talk about the savings account part of this, or the available funds portion of this system. You can see that after only 1 year, Steve has built up a pretty good little tank of available funds. Well, let's go a few years in. Let's go like 3 years in and say that car that he paid off, the engine blew in it, and he really needs to get a new one. He's not going to buy a new one. He's going to buy a nice $15,000 used car at that point. So I'm going to put in here a withdrawal of $15,000. Why would we do that rather than maybe getting a car on a loan? Well, I think we just kind of covered that in the last segment, because we understand that when we take on a new loan, that it inhibits our cash flow, and when we do that, we're making a huge mistake. So we want to use our HELOC to buy the automobile with, and I'll show you why. There's the $15,000 withdrawal. He went out and got himself a really nice 2-year-old used car, very dependable. Let me hit save, and again, right now we're at 5 years. I want to hit save and see what the effect of that 15 grand does to his payoff. There it is. All right. Let's let this sink in a minute. That took him to 5 years and 5 months. Imagine, if you will, that Steve went out and got that $15,000 automobile, and he got it on a 36-month loan. 15,000 divided by 36, not even figuring any interest in, is $416 per month. So here's, boiled down, here's what Steve did not do. Steve did not go out and get a car loan, which was going to cost his cash flow $416 per month for 3 years. He did not do that. All he did was he paid for it with his home equity line of credit, his HELOC, and it added 5 months to his payoff. And the math does not lie, folks. Again, you can do the math from 89,000 at this point, and you can add that, and you can subtract that, and you can add that, and you can add that, and you're going to get this number next. Okay, and then you do the math across here again, and you're going to get that number next. All the way down, we can do that, and we can see, there it is. 5 years and 5 months he is paid off. It's just math, folks. That's all it is. You can buy 10, 15, I don't know, 20 new cars, nice used cars, in the amount that it's going to, or in the time that it's going to take him to pay off his home the old way. So folks, it's a cash flow issue, it's a mortgage acceleration issue, and if you qualify, in other words, if you have a decent credit score or a good credit score, and if you bring in more money than what goes out, and if you have some equity in your home, typically 20% or better, then I'm going to invite you to go to stewardshiponsteroids.com, browse through the website, click on create a profile either here or here, and get your journey started. We can look at the numbers. In other words, you're probably sitting there now saying, wow, I wonder what these numbers look like for us. Well, this is how we're going to find out. In doing so, I'll see that you've visited. I will contact you, and I will personally walk you through the numbers and advise you. Is this good for you, or is it really not? Either way, you're going to hear the truth about it. I really appreciate your time today. I certainly hope that this information can help you, and I certainly hope that it would bless you and really turn you in from being a good steward to a great steward. God bless you.